All your life you've been told that some things are impossible for you, that only a chosen few can achieve success or greatness. But what if it was all a lie? What if the only real barrier was inside your own mind? The Stoics knew that a person's greatest power doesn't lie in their circumstances, but in their ability to train their mind. Because whoever masters their thoughts, masters their destiny. In this video, you'll discover 12 Stoic lessons that will teach you how to break your own limits, see beyond obstacles, and achieve what today seems impossible. And no, it's not about luck, talent, or privilege. It's about training your mind to see possibilities where others only see failure. The Stoics understood something most people ignore. True power isn't in what you have, it's in how you think. And today, I'll show you how to apply their teachings so you can achieve what you once thought was impossible. Because the only difference between success and failure is how you choose to face life. Are you ready to reprogram your mind and unlock your full potential? Let's get started. But before we begin, let me tell you a story that shows the power of training your mind to achieve the impossible. This is the story of Maria, a young woman who had always had an entrepreneurial spirit. As a child, she sold handmade bracelets at school, not for the money, but because she loved the idea of creating something and sharing it with others. In high school, she organized raffles in her neighborhood. At 18, she started selling custom-designed t-shirts, which she both designed and made herself. Maria had the spark, the creativity, but over time, fear extinguished it. As she grew older, life took her down a different path. She got a stable job, a steady paycheck, and security. But she also started feeling like something inside her was fading. She watched others start businesses, take risks, fail, and try again, while she remained stuck in her routine. The same routine that gave her financial stability, the one she had been taught to value since childhood. Every time she had a new idea, her mind held her back. You don't have enough money. It's not the right time. What if you fail and make a fool of yourself? And so the years went by. Maria convinced herself that being an entrepreneur wasn't for her. She wasn't as brave or as smart as those successful figures who built empires from nothing. Maybe she was meant to follow orders, not create something of her own. Until one day she ran into an old friend who knew her well and told her something that shook her to the core. Maria, the only difference between you and the people who achieve their dreams is that they take action despite their fear. You keep waiting to feel ready, but you never will unless you jump in. That phrase stuck with her for days. For the first time, she realized that neither money nor experience was holding her back. It was her mindset. So she decided to conduct an experiment. For 6 months, she would invest time and energy into launching something of her own. No excuses. She had always been good with food and had a special talent for flavors. So she decided to try something close to her heart, starting a small business selling homemade sauces. She got a small stall at her neighborhood market to begin her journey. At first, it was tough. Sales were slow, people barely noticed her, and some days she felt like giving up. But this time, when her mind tried to sabotage her with thoughts like, "See, you're not good at this," she responded, "I haven't failed yet. I'm just learning." Over time, she started testing new strategies. She organized tasting events at her home, gathering feedback on flavors. She created online surveys to understand which ingredients and styles people liked most. When she noticed a preference for certain flavors, she adjusted her recipes. Then she started offering free samples at local markets, staying to observe people's reactions. Every comment, every expression taught her something. She welcomed criticism, made improvements, redesigned her label, and learned to tell her story through every jar of sauce she sold. Little by little, her sauces started gaining recognition. She received her first large order from a local restaurant. Then, a small supermarket agreed to sell her products. What once seemed impossible was now real. At that moment, Maria finally saw the fruits of her labor. But more importantly, she saw the reward of training her mind to achieve the impossible. She realized it was never about money, connections, or luck. It was about mindset. Now, my friend, do you see the lesson in this story? As the Stoics taught us, whoever masters their mind masters their destiny. So tell me, are you going to keep letting fear hold you back, or are you going to train your mind to achieve the impossible? If your answer is what I think it is, stay with me until the end, and you'll learn how to write your own success story. Before we dive into the key lessons for achieving the impossible, if this content is bringing you value, I invite you to make your mark. Share in the comments if you're ready to train your mind and become the best version of yourself. Or simply say, I am Stoic. Let's make this space a place where we can all grow and strengthen each other. Let's begin. 1. Limits only exist in your mind. What if I told you that everything you believe to be impossible is just an imaginary wall you've built yourself? That the reason you haven't achieved what you want isn't a lack of talent, money, or luck, but a lie you've been telling yourself for years? I know it sounds harsh, but the sooner you accept it, the better. From a young age, we're taught to think small, to believe that certain things are only for the lucky ones, for the chosen few, for geniuses. We're programmed to see barriers where none exist, and we convince ourselves that some dreams are simply not meant for us. But let me tell you something, that's a lie. The Stoics knew this well. To them, external limits didn't exist, only internal ones did. Epictetus, born a slave, became one of the most influential philosophers in history. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of the chaos of his empire, understood that his greatest power didn't lie in his army, but in his mind. They both grasped something that most people never see. It's not the world that holds you back, it's you. A group of scientists conducted an experiment that perfectly illustrates this concept. The flea experiment. Yes, you heard that right, fleas. They placed several fleas inside a glass jar and sealed it with a lid. For days, the fleas tried to jump out, only to hit the lid again and again. After some time, the scientists removed the lid. And here's where it gets interesting. Do you know what the fleas did then? Nothing. That's right, nothing. The fleas had stopped trying to jump higher. They had learned there was a limit, even though that limit no longer existed. My friend, humans aren't fleas, but we act exactly the same way. From childhood, we learn that we can't do certain things, that there are limits we shouldn't cross. And even when reality changes, we continue acting as if those barriers are real. How many dreams have you abandoned just because someone told you that you weren't capable? How many times have you held yourself back without even giving it a real shot? Think about something you once believed was impossible but now do naturally. Maybe you thought you'd never learn to drive, that speaking in public was terrifying, or that you'd never be able to change jobs. But one day you did it, and the barrier disappeared. It's that simple and that difficult at the same time. Tell me, if you've already overcome those things, what makes you think you can't overcome what you're facing today? The process is the same. The only difference is that you haven't allowed yourself to try enough times. The problem is that you keep repeating the stories that trap you. Phrases like, I wasn't born for this. I don't have what it takes. I'll never make it. But those aren't truths. They're excuses disguised as reality. What would happen if you dared to act without believing in those self-imposed limits? If you realized that failure is just another step on the journey, and that the only thing separating those who achieve the impossible from those who give up is that the former keep going despite the fear. Think of anyone you admire. They weren't necessarily born with more opportunities or more luck. They simply refused to accept the limits imposed by others. So now tell me, are you going to keep living inside an invisible cage, or are you going to dare to jump higher? Because my friend, all you have to do is believe in yourself, and the impossible disappears. 2. The fear of failure is worse than failure itself. Failing isn't the problem. The problem is the fear that paralyzes you before you even try. Be honest, how many times have you let an opportunity slip away because you were afraid of making a mistake? That business you never started, that person you never spoke to, that decision you kept postponing until it was too late. If you really think about it, most of the things you haven't achieved in life aren't because you failed trying. Of course not. It's because you never even dared to try. And that's the trap. The fear of failure is the only real failure. The impossible remains impossible only if you don't even attempt it. Imagine yourself 10 years from now, looking back. What do you think will haunt you? What do you think you'll regret? The things you believed were impossible but tried anyway? Or all the things you gave up on just because you were too afraid to fail? Yes, my friend, I think I know your answer. I highly doubt you'll regret the times you failed, but you will regret everything you never had the courage to try. Failure teaches, strengthens, and makes you wiser. But the fear of failure keeps you stuck, trapped in a version of yourself that never grows, never moves forward, and never discovers what you're truly capable of. The Stoics understood this clearly. Fear is just an anticipation of a future that doesn't exist yet. It's a movie playing in your mind where you already see yourself failing, losing, embarrassing yourself. But tell me, how many times have those worst-case scenarios you imagined actually happened? There's a story about a famous tightrope walker who walked across a rope strung between two skyscrapers. Below him, a crowd held their breath. With every step, the danger of falling was real. But he never stopped. When he reached the other side, someone asked him, "How do you do it without fear?" He smiled and replied, "I just focus on the next step." And that is the key. The fear of failure only appears when you look too far ahead, when you let your mind flood you with worst-case scenarios instead of focusing on what you can actually control. A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary, said Seneca. Oh, what brilliant wisdom. It really is that simple, if you're willing to see it. If you want to achieve something great, you have to fail many times first. There is no other way. But every failure teaches you something. Every mistake is an adjustment. Every fall is training. Every obstacle is a lesson. My friend, those who achieve the impossible aren't the ones who never failed. They're the ones who failed more times than anyone else and kept going. So the question isn't if you're going to fail, because you will. The real question is, what will you do afterward? Because in the end, failing while trying is 1,000 times better than failing without having done anything at all. But I know it's not easy. Fear is tough. So if fear is what's holding you back, here are a few tricks to overcome it. First, think about the worst-case scenario. Ask yourself, if I fail, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? You'll realize that in most cases, it's not as bad as your mind makes it seem. Second, change your perspective. Stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what can I learn from this? And most importantly, take immediate action. Don't overthink it. Do something today, no matter how small. Start the project, make the call, send the message. Action defeats fear. Do you know what the great Marcus Aurelius said? Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Now tell me, are you going to keep letting fear hold you back? Are you going to keep believing your own excuses? Or are you going to train your mind to achieve the impossible? 3. The perfect moment doesn't exist. How many more dreams are you going to keep putting on hold while you wait to feel ready? We fool ourselves by saying, there will be a better time, when I have more time, when I feel prepared. And so, we keep postponing life, believing that one day a magical sign will appear and tell us, now is the perfect moment. But spoiler alert, that day never comes. My friend, psychology has a name for this habit of overthinking instead of acting. It's called analysis paralysis, a phenomenon that traps us when we try to plan every detail before taking action. We want to foresee everything, make sure nothing goes wrong. But the irony is that the more we think, the more doubts arise, the more excuses we invent, and the more time we waste. Psychologist and Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman put it in a brutal truth. A person who waits until they are sure never does anything. And the Stoics knew this long before psychology existed. They didn't need scientific studies, their wisdom was enough. To them, waiting was a trick of the mind. The only thing that is real, the only thing we have power over, is the present. Think of Marcus Aurelius. Imagine if, In the middle of the Roman Empire's crisis, with wars, betrayals, and chaos everywhere, he had said, "I'll wait until things calm down before I take action." Rome would have collapsed before that day ever came. But he understood that the perfect moment doesn't exist. A leader acts in the middle of chaos, not when they feel ready, not when everything is in order. Modern life traps us in the same illusion. Think of someone who wants to start reading more. They convince themselves they need the perfect book, the ideal time, the right environment. They spend months searching for recommendations, watching reviews, buying books they never open. But the habit never starts because they're still waiting for the perfect conditions. What should they do instead? Open any book and read 2 pages, right now. It doesn't matter if it's the right book or if they only have 5 free minutes, because action creates habits, not intention. Imagine your life as a ship in the middle of the ocean. No matter how much you plan the journey, if you never lift the anchor, you'll never move. And while you wait for the perfect conditions to set sail, other ships with far less preparation than yours have already left the harbor. And of course, you'll blame the weather, you'll blame the tide, or the scorching sun that won't give you a break. My friend, that ends today. The key to achieving what seems impossible is to stop waiting for the perfect moment. It's to start now, because here's the trick. Step by step, the impossible becomes possible. Brick by brick, the castle is built. So next time you think about waiting until you're ready, remember this. You don't need to be ready. You just need to start. 4. If no one believes in you, believe in yourself. I know how painful it is not to be taken seriously. We all want approval, recognition, and support. But let me tell you a truth no one else will. You don't need anyone to believe in you, except yourself. How many ideas have you abandoned because someone told you they were impossible? How many dreams have you put on hold because others didn't have faith in you? Let me tell you my story. A few years ago, I had an idea. I wanted to create content that would inspire people, help them change their mindset and push past their limits. I saw it so clearly in my head, messages that would shake people up, drive them to take action, and show them that their mind was their most powerful tool. But the moment I started sharing my idea, the criticism began. That kind of content won't catch on. People don't want to reflect, they want easy entertainment. It's impossible for this to work. Who's going to listen to you? And of course, those words made me doubt myself, because when so many voices tell you something won't work, it's easy to believe them. Until I remembered something Epictetus once said. First, decide who you will be. Then, do what you must do. That's when it clicked. I didn't need anyone else to see what I saw. The only thing that mattered was that I believed in it. So I decided to go for it anyway. No validation, no guarantees, no waiting for approval. I just got to work. Every day I created, every day I learned, every day I improved. At first it felt like shouting into the void. No one seemed to notice. No one shared my content. And the same people who doubted me before were now saying, "Told you so." I won't lie. There were moments when I thought about quitting, disappearing, giving up. But I didn't. I remember one conversation in particular. A good friend looked me in the eye and said, "If you don't see results in a few months, you should just quit. It's a waste of time." That day, I went home, and for a moment, I almost believed him. But then I did something that I highly recommend. I had a conversation with myself. If I quit now, I'll be giving up just because I listened to someone who never even tried. Is that what I want? If you're here, listening to me, you already know my answer. I kept going. And one day, out of nowhere, one of my messages started resonating with people. Then another, then another. And suddenly, what everyone once called impossible became real. What I learned from that experience is this. No one else can see what you see in your mind. They can't feel the vision you feel because they're not inside of you. So yes, it's okay to seek support, but waiting for others to believe in you before you act is a trap. The Stoics taught us that external validation is an illusion. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, "Don't waste time arguing about what a good man should be one." You don't need to convince anyone, you just need to act. If you feel like no one believes in you, do this. Be your own reference point. Stop looking for others to validate your ideas. If you believe in it, do it. Period. And another piece of advice that helped me: only listen to people who have achieved what you want. Most of the people who criticize you have never even attempted what you're trying to do. The ones who say it's impossible, they've never even tried. Look around you. The world is full of people who doubt everything until they see someone do it. Do you think 100 years ago people believed going to the moon was possible? Do you think 50 years ago anyone imagined the internet? And yet, here we are, my friend. Don't wait for others to believe in you. Believe in yourself first. 5. Success is about holding on longer than the rest. Everyone wants results, but few are willing to pay the price that greatness demands. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's resilience. Holding on when others give up, pushing forward when nothing seems to be working, trusting the process even when you see no progress. Think of a marble sculpture. The sculptor doesn't create it with a single strike, but with thousands of small chisel impacts. Day after day, they remove what's unnecessary, shape the details, and carve meaning out of what was once just a purposeless stone. And if they stop too soon, they'll never see the masterpiece completed. Psychology confirms this. Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist, proved that success doesn't depend on intelligence or natural ability, but on a growth mindset. The ability to persist, learn from mistakes, and improve over time. The people who achieve great things aren't the ones who never fail, but the ones who keep going despite their failures. The Stoics understood this centuries earlier. Seneca put it best: "A diamond cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without difficulties." Do you think those who have achieved the most in life had everything working in their favor from the start? Or were they simply the ones who held on the longest when everyone else quit? Think about Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in history. Do you think he was always the leader, the athlete, the prodigy we know today? Of course not. He was actually cut from his high school basketball team because he didn't have enough talent. Yes, you heard that right. They told him he wasn't good enough. He could have accepted that as his fate, but instead, he used every rejection as fuel. He trained harder than anyone and turned every mistake into an opportunity to improve. It wasn't talent that made him a legend. It was his resilience. And this isn't just about athletes. Now think about Walt Disney. He was fired from a newspaper because, get this, they told him he had no imagination. Incredible, right? The genius behind the Disney empire was told he wasn't creative enough. That could have been the end of his story. He could have believed them. But instead of giving up, he kept creating, kept trying, kept dreaming of the impossible when no one else did. Do you see the lesson? Neither of them had an easy path. The difference is that they never allowed an obstacle to be the end of their story. They worked harder than anyone, and in the end, they achieved what no one else could. Tell me, how many times have you started learning a new language, an instrument, a sport, only to quit when you didn't see immediate progress? Big mistake, my friend. A bamboo plant can spend years underground without showing any visible growth. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, its roots are spreading, growing stronger. And when it finally breaks through the ground, it grows faster than any other plant. If you're feeling like giving up, remember this. Don't obsess over the final result. Focus on improving just 1% each day. Progress comes from the accumulation of small, consistent efforts. Even if you fail, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It just means you haven't achieved it yet. Failure is part of the process. It's not the end. And the final trick: keep going when everyone else stops. Most people give up after their first few attempts. If you keep pushing forward, you're already ahead of 90% of them. Because at the end of the day, success doesn't belong to those who start with the most advantages. It belongs to those who stay in the game when everyone else has walked away. Now tell me in the comments, In what area of your life do you need to hold on a little longer? What's that one thing that challenges you, that tempts you to quit? Or just write, "I am the bamboo that grows in silence." 6. Start before you're ready. Do you remember the first time you rode a bike? You didn't wait until you had perfect balance, memorized the theory of pedaling, or studied a cycling manual. You just got on. You wobbled, took a few clumsy pedals, fell a couple of times, and kept going until one day, without even realizing it, you were riding without fear. So why, when it comes to big dreams, do we convince ourselves that we need to be fully prepared before we begin? If we already understood this as children, why did we forget? Look around. The people who achieve the impossible don't do it because they were 100% ready. They do it because they started before they were ready. They jumped in with what they had and learned along the way. Seneca put it plainly, "While a man hesitates, considers, and prepares, life passes him by." The problem is that most people think they need absolute certainty before taking action. It's like someone who wants to learn how to swim, but insists on reading about swimming techniques for years without ever setting foot in the water. What sense does that make? Or like someone who wants to start a business but spends months designing the perfect logo without having sold a single product. Perfection is the favorite excuse of those who never dare to begin. As the saying goes, "Walker, there is no path. The path is made by walking." What a powerful truth. Let me share an old fable with you. A farmer would check his field every morning, waiting for the perfect moment to plant his seeds. One day, it was too hot. The next, the clouds threatened rain. Then, the soil seemed too dry. There was always an excuse not to start. Weeks passed, then months, and when he finally decided to plant, winter had arrived. His opportunity was gone. That's the trap we all fall into. We wait for the perfect moment, not realizing that the only real opportunity is now. How many times have you done the same? How many times have you said you'd start on Monday, next month, next year? How many opportunities have passed you by because you were too busy preparing for them? Marcus Aurelius said it best, "Stop wasting time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The Stoics understood that the future does not belong to us. The only thing we can control is what we do in this moment. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the first step. And do you know why? Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. Start writing before you've taken the best writing course. Start training without the most expensive gear. Start that project without knowing every single detail. Because success doesn't belong to those who plan everything. It belongs to those who start before they're ready. The perfect moment doesn't exist, but this one does. Don't wait for the path to reveal itself to you. Take the first step and let the path form beneath your feet. 7. Mistakes are your friends. Let me tell you the story of a military genius who lived centuries ago. A brilliant strategist, a leader who changed history. But before he conquered Europe, he lost key battles, made costly mistakes, and stood on the brink of collapse. Overconfident in his victories, he underestimated his enemies time and time again. His army, the most powerful of its time, was nearly destroyed. His allies abandoned him. His enemies surrounded him, and what seemed like an indestructible empire crumbled before his eyes. Anyone else would have surrendered. But instead, he learned from his mistakes, rebuilt his army, and in less than 2 years, he was back to challenge Europe once again. Do you know who I'm talking about? That's right, Napoleon Bonaparte. Even he failed, made miscalculations, and fell. And yet, we remember him as a military genius. So why do you still believe that mistakes are the end? Why are you so afraid of being wrong? It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult. Seneca. Think about something that's happened to you. Maybe you forgot an important detail in a meeting, sent the wrong message, missed an opportunity because of a small mistake. What did you do afterward? Most people get stuck in regret. How could I be so stupid? I shouldn't have done that. Everything is ruined. But tell me, what's the point of all that drama? The mistake already happened. Regret doesn't change a thing. The Stoics taught that mistakes aren't the problem. The problem is how we respond to them. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled during times of crisis, understood this well. Every failure, every obstacle was an opportunity to improve. In his personal writings, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Mistakes don't stop you, they teach you. Think about this: a donkey fell into a deep well. Desperate, it brayed loudly while the villagers tried to find a solution. But when they realized they couldn't pull it out, they made a harsh decision. They would bury it right there. They grabbed shovels and started tossing dirt into the well. But instead of giving up, the donkey shook the dirt off its back and stepped up. With each shovel of dirt, it shook it off and climbed higher. Until finally, it used what was meant to bury it to climb out of the well. Mistakes work the same way. You can let them bury you, or you can shake them off and use them to rise. No one achieves anything great without having failed first. Elite athletes have lost more times than they've won. Successful entrepreneurs have gone broke more than once. The greatest artists have discarded more works than they've ever shown. So, my friend, if you want to achieve the impossible, you must accept that stumbling is part of the journey. As Epictetus said, "Do not worry if you stumble. Worry only if you learn nothing from the fall." Let me give you 3 foolproof tricks to stop seeing mistakes as enemies. First, change your inner dialogue. Don't think, "I'm a failure." Instead, think, "This is a lesson." Second, respond. Don't react. Instead of dwelling on it, ask yourself, "How can I fix this?" And third, accept that failure is part of success. If you never fail, it means you never tried anything truly challenging. My friend, success isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning everything you can from every stumble. The people who win aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who use each mistake as a stepping stone to something greater. 8. If you don't take risks, don't expect great achievements. We all admire people who accomplish the impossible. We see them succeed and think they were destined for it, that they were lucky, that somehow it was meant to be. But there's something most people ignore. Those individuals didn't get there by playing it safe. They got there because they took risks, while everyone else was too afraid to take the leap. Do you know what people regret the most in old age? It's not the things they tried and failed at. It's the things they never had the courage to do. Studies on regret in old age have shown that what weighs heaviest are the missed opportunities, the chances never taken out of fear of failing. Do you get it? It's not your failures that will haunt you. It's the person you never asked out, the business you never started, the trip you were too scared to take. Jeff Bezos put it best when he said, "It's human nature to overestimate risk and underestimate opportunity." And Bezos knows a thing or two about taking risks. After all, he built the largest logistics empire on the planet. Look at the trees around you. Some are tall and lush, full of leaves, strong against any storm. Others are small, frail, barely holding on. Do you know the difference? The strong trees reached for more light, absorbed more water, expanded, took the risk to grow. The weak ones stayed in the shadows, without light, without space, without pushing further. That's exactly what happens to those who never take risks. It's not that they're less capable, it's that they never dare to try. Now tell me, are you the tree that expands, or the one that settles for what's within reach? Seneca made the meaning of risk-taking clear. It's not because things are difficult that we don't dare. It's because we don't dare that they are difficult. The fear of risk paralyzes us. It makes us imagine every possible way something could go wrong. But the truth is, everything worthwhile lies beyond that fear. And what about Marcus Aurelius? Do you think he was afraid of taking risks? If he had been, no one would be talking about him centuries later. As emperor, he had to make decisions that determined the fate of Rome. If he had chosen the safe path, if he had cowered in the face of risk, his empire would have crumbled. But in his personal writings, he left behind the mindset that guided him through his hardest moments. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. If you think with fear, you will live with fear. If you think with greatness, you will live with greatness. But no, I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm simply asking you to stop hiding behind what's comfortable, to push yourself just a little bit more every day. Here's how. Start making decisions without waiting for absolute certainty. Speak up in that meeting where you usually stay silent. Share an idea. Try something new this weekend, even if it's just changing your usual coffee shop. Small, controlled risks train you for bigger challenges. Do something uncomfortable every single day. Fear weakens when you face it. If you take one small step outside your comfort zone daily, you'll be shocked at how far you can go. So tell me, how many times have you let an opportunity slip away because it seemed too risky? How many times have you envied someone who had the courage to do what you didn't? How many times have you said someday, when deep down, you knew that day would never come unless you acted now? Success, my friend, is the enemy of fear. It doesn't belong to those who wait. It belongs to those who dare. Because if you don't take risks, you've already lost before you even begin. 9. Change your mind and you'll change your destiny. Your life is a reflection of what you think every day. If you believe you can't, you won't. If you believe you don't deserve more, you'll never have it. If you believe there's no way out, you'll never find one. But here's the truth that few are willing to accept. It's not luck, it's not circumstances, and it's not other people that determine your destiny. It's your mind. And if you learn to change it, you can change everything. Think about the Wright brothers. At the beginning of the 20th century, humanity believed that flying was impossible. The most respected scientists assured the world that no machine heavier than air could ever stay in flight. It was madness, an absurd dream. But the Wright brothers didn't see limits, they saw possibilities. They failed again and again. They crashed. They were ridiculed. People called them crazy, and yet they kept going. After years of failed attempts, they finally achieved what the world swore was impossible. They flew. Now tell me, what impossible have you been made to believe? What dreams did you abandon because someone told you you couldn't? Maybe someone said you weren't good enough for that job you wanted. Maybe they told you that learning a new language at your age was a waste of time. Tell me in the comments, what dream was taken from your mind that you're now ready to reclaim? Imagine this. At a circus, a massive elephant stands tied to a small stake in the ground. With its strength, it could easily pull it out and break free. But it doesn't. It stays there, tied, trapped, motionless. Do you know why? Because when it was young, that same stake was too strong for it. It tried to break free, but it was too weak. It struggled over and over again, until, exhausted, it gave up. Years passed. Its body grew, its strength multiplied, but its mind stayed stuck in that first failure, and it never tried again. Now here's the big question. How many times have you done the same thing? How many times has one past failure convinced you that you'll never be able to do something? And so you stay there, tied to an idea you could break free from if only you dared to try again. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. To them, true freedom wasn't found in the outside world. It was in mastering your own mind. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. What a powerful phrase. One to be framed. Do you know what he did when his mind played tricks on him? He didn't blindly believe his negative thoughts. He questioned them. Is this really true, or is it just something I've assumed? He also spoke to himself the way he would speak to someone he loved. You can do the same. If a friend told you they were a failure, would you agree with them? Or would you prove them wrong? Do the same for yourself. And another great trick from Marcus Aurelius, act like the person you want to become. Do you know what that means? If you want to be confident, don't wait for confidence to magically appear. Give yourself permission to act with confidence. Start now, and the change will follow. The Stoics knew that your mind can be your greatest prison or your greatest freedom. The choice has always been in your hands. If you change what you believe is possible, you will change what is possible for you. 10. It doesn't matter how you start, only how you persist. We all want to start with an advantage. We want natural talent, unlimited resources, the perfect conditions for success. But the truth is, the people who go far aren't the ones who had the best start. They're the ones who refuse to give up. The world is full of success stories that began with failure, of geniuses who were once considered mediocre, of athletes who were written off at the beginning. The winner isn't the one who starts best. The winner is the one still standing when everyone else has fallen. Think about Thomas Edison. He failed more than 10,000 times before he revolutionized the light bulb. When asked how he felt after so many failures, he responded, "Failure? I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." Ah, what an incredible lesson, my friend. Such confidence, such resilience. That is what led him to success. He never saw his failures as failures. To him, they were just steps leading him to the right path. If he had quit on attempt number 9,900, the world would be different today. But he didn't quit. That's why we know his name, because he achieved the impossible. But now I want to share something more personal. When I started my first big project, I was convinced it would work quickly. I had a plan. I had energy. My motivation was at its peak. But what I didn't have were results. Weeks passed, then months. Nothing. One day, a good friend, someone who had been in the same position before, looked at me and said, "The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that the successful ones keep going when everyone else gives up." Those words hit me hard. That's when I realized something. The only way to fail was to stop trying. So I kept going. When no one else saw progress, when nothing seemed to be working, when doubts started creeping into my mind, I stopped wondering if I would succeed. That was already a fact. The only question was when. And then, one day, everything started to change. What once seemed impossible slowly became reality. It didn't matter how I started. The only thing that mattered was that I didn't stop. I had a clear goal, and I wasn't in a rush. That is the magic formula. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't focus on immediate results. They focused on constant effort. It didn't matter if circumstances were unfair, if things didn't go as planned, or if they faced setbacks. Imagine Marcus Aurelius on the battlefield. His army weakened. Winter crushing his soldiers, enemies closing in. It would have been easy to say, "I can't win, everything is against me." But he didn't think about losing. He thought about how to move forward, a little more. One more day, one more step. In his personal writings he wrote, "Do what you must do, even if you tremble, even if you doubt. Do it." Wow, that gives me chills. Our friend Seneca had the same wisdom when he said, "The greatest misfortune is not to fall, but not to rise again." It doesn't matter if today things feel stuck. It doesn't matter if progress is slower than you expected. The only thing that matters is whether you keep going or decide to quit. If you're in a moment where you feel like nothing is working, do this. Separate emotions from action. Don't make decisions based on how you feel today. A bad day doesn't mean you should give up. Remember why you started. When you feel like quitting, go back to your reason. Why did I begin this? Reconnect with that purpose and keep moving forward. Do it for one more day. When you feel like you can't continue, just push for one more day, then another, and another. Resilience is built one step at a time. Everyone stumbles, everyone doubts, everyone has moments of despair. But the difference between those who make it and those who don't? The ones who succeed stand up one more time than they fall. The question isn't if you'll face challenges. The question is, will you keep going when they come? I believe in you, my friend. I know you can. 11. Progress in silence, surprise with results. We live in an era where everyone wants to show their progress before they've even made any. We post a photo from our first day at the gym before lifting a single weight. We talk about our business idea before making our first sale. We announce our plans to the world as if that alone were part of success. But here's the trap. Talking about what you're going to do is not the same as doing it. Think of the greatest achievers. Have you ever seen an athlete celebrate victory before crossing the finish line? Have you ever seen a master boast about their knowledge before learning the lesson? As Ryan Holiday said in Ego is the Enemy, the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less energy you have to actually do it. True success doesn't come from noise. It comes from silent work. Real progress happens when no one is watching. Imagine a writer who, instead of talking about their novel, sits down to write every single day until the words take shape. Or an entrepreneur who, instead of bragging about their idea, builds something so strong that one day the world can't ignore it. Progress doesn't need applause. It needs consistency. Science backs this up. Studies show that when we announce our goals publicly, our brain experiences a premature sense of achievement. We feel good, as if we've already made progress. And that false satisfaction lowers our motivation to actually do the work. Psychologist Peter Gallwitzer, an expert in human behavior, put it clearly. When you talk about your goals, your brain receives an emotional reward that can trick you into feeling like you've already achieved them. And why does this happen? Because of endorphins. Those hormones that can be our best allies. But if we're not careful, they steal our dreams before we even start. In other words, talking too much about what you're going to do can be your worst enemy. It relaxes you, takes away your sense of urgency, and before you know it, months have passed, and you're still in the same place. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. To them, work mattered more than words. Marcus Aurelius wrote another brilliant reminder in his journal: don't explain your philosophy, live it. And Seneca made it even clearer: great achievements require time and silence. If history's greatest thinkers and the world's best psychologists knew that success isn't announced, why do we keep expecting recognition before we've earned it? If you truly want to progress, stop boasting before it's time and start doing this instead. Stop announcing every step. Use that energy to take the step instead. Let results speak for you. Don't tell people what you're going to do. Do it so well that the world has no choice but to notice. Work in the shadows, shine in the light. Stop seeking constant validation. Success comes when what you've done in private is too big to be ignored. Real satisfaction doesn't come from premature applause. It comes from looking back and knowing that, no matter who was watching, you gave your best every single day. Don't waste time talking about what you're going to do. Use that time to do it. And when the moment comes, surprise them with the results. Now, my friend, this is where everything comes together. Because progressing in silence is crucial, but there's something even more powerful. Something that truly separates those who achieve the impossible from those who quit halfway. If there's one final principle you must burn into your mind, it's this: without it, everything else crumbles. With it, any goal, no matter how big, becomes achievable. 12. What you do today determines who you'll become tomorrow. This is the point that changes everything, the one that separates dreamers from achievers, the ultimate key to accomplishing the impossible. Because it doesn't matter how much you prepare, how much you plan, or how much you believe in yourself. If you don't take action every single day toward what you want, you will never get there. Success doesn't happen in one big heroic moment. It's not the result of a single grand action. It's the outcome of hundreds of small daily choices. It's what you do when no one is watching. It's what you risk when you could settle for less. It's what you repeat, day after day, when everyone else has given up. Now think about the people who have achieved the unthinkable, the great fortunes, the brilliant minds who changed history, the athletes, artists, and leaders who now seem untouchable. Do you really think all of that happened by chance? Or do you think they visualized the life they wanted and took action every single day, without excuses, without waiting for the perfect moment? And here's the harsh truth. If you delay today, tomorrow, you'll still be in the same place. If you let opportunities pass today, tomorrow it'll be even harder to take them. If you tell yourself you'll start later, you'll probably never start. Life is nothing more than the accumulation of what you do right now. Imagine someone who wants to change their life but finds an excuse every single day. I'm too tired today. It's not the right time. Tomorrow will be different. But as the years pass, they realize that every tomorrow was a wasted opportunity. As our wise Stoic friends taught us, the present is the only thing we truly own. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in doubt and procrastination. Life is happening now." The problem is, we keep waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal motivation, the magical sign that tells us now is the time to act. But the only sign you need is this one, the fact that you're here, right now, hearing this. If you truly want to achieve the impossible, do this right now. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. Write down, in detail, what your perfect life would look like 5 years from now. Where would you be? How would you feel? What would you be doing? Be specific. Don't hold back. Once you have it, look at that list. Now bring that future into the present. Find one small thing you can start doing today. If you want to be in shape, train today. If you want to own a business, research today. Don't wait. Do it now. And the most important key, repeat it every day. You don't have to do everything at once, but each small action is a vote in favor of the life you want to build. In the end, your destiny isn't determined by what you say you'll do. It's determined by what you actually do, over and over and over again until you make it happen. So tell me, what are you going to do today to change your tomorrow? Achieving the impossible isn't about talent, luck, or circumstances. It's about taking action, persisting, and believing in yourself, even when no one else does. Every single day is an opportunity to get closer to the life you truly want, and to prove to yourself that you are capable of far more than you think. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Today, I achieved the impossible." That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.